Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Good evening, everyone, or good morning, everyone. I hope that you have your cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and welcome to our fifth podcast in the series, where we're looking at the early life and times of Steven Avery. And before we start our podcast, I'd like to thank all of our supporters for listening to our podcast, for your excellent comments of support, and for your suggestions. And we hope that you are enjoying the podcast. We take it very casual. And tonight, hopefully, won't be such a long podcast. We'll try and keep it under an hour. Now, joining me today on our podcast are BB, Big Jeff, Christy Lynn, Millbilly, Number Plate, Zoe, and Sammy. I'd like to welcome you all to our podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start on slide 67. And essentially, this is where we left off last time. And as you could remember, Steven Avery was in prison for 18 years. Yes, he did a crime involving his cousin, Sandra Morris, but he also was charged with attempted rape and assault of Penny Bernstein. And he was sentenced to a total of 18 years in prison. Now, he always maintained his innocence. He always said that he was innocent. And despite having 16 key material witnesses, the judge and the jury found Steven Avery guilty. Well, as it turned out, he eventually got exonerated due to DNA testing of just one pubic hair, and that DNA happened to belong to Gregory Allen. Now, the problem with that is not only with the wrongful conviction, but there was a lot of evidence to suggest that both the sheriff and the DA knew that the real perpetrator of the crime many years ago was in fact Gregory Allen. Now, Peg L wrote a massive report, basically looking into the case to see what had gone wrong. And unfortunately, when the report came out, no blame was attributed to anyone. In fact, in the report, they strongly hinted that it was actually the fault of the victim, Penny. They were pointing their finger at Penny because she's the one that picked out Steven Avery. Now, as you can guess, we've gone through this in our podcasts where we look back at all the shenanigans that took place. Now, as a consequence of that, Steven had a civil lawsuit against the county, and he was going to sue for up to $36 million in damage. Now, what had occurred, if you look at our earlier podcasts, is that various members of the Sheriff's Department and others were called up for depositions. And as you can see from slide 67, something remarkable actually happened. Jean Couchet was the last person to be deposed on October the 26th. On October the 31st, which was Halloween, Teresa Halbach went to the Avery salvage yard to take photographs of Steven Avery's sister's van. On November the 1st, the Avery bill passes the state legislature. On November the 3rd, Teresa Halbach is reported missing. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the story, we're going to pick up the narrative at this state. And the reason why this event is so critical, remember, Teresa Halbach was reported as a missing person. The reason why it was so critical was because 2 individuals were not yet deposed. The sheriff, Tom Kacerik, and the DA, Dennis Vogel. They were going to be deposed in about a week's time. So it is interesting that now we have this young lady, Teresa Halbach, who is reported missing on November the 3rd. Now, guys, I'll open it up. Do we have any comments so far? Big Jeff.
Okay, as one quick point, Steven Avery was actually sentenced to 32 years. He only served 18 for that exoneration.
Yes.
But additional comment of just about the miraculousness of Teresa going missing in that very small window is
the timing per se is very, very uncanny. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just the coincidence of it all being perfectly timed.
Yes, it does seem rather bizarre. All right then. So yes, Big Jeff, you are correct. He was sentenced to 32 years. And I'd forgotten to mention that with the testing of the pubic hair, the laboratory technician, Cherie Cohane, had sat on that result for a year prior to getting it out. So potentially the MTSO and other individuals had a year to think about the implications of Steven's impending release. All right, so guys, let's turn to slide number 68. Before we actually do that, Billy, do you have any comments about the timing of Teresa's disappearance when it became known that she was a missing person? Billy.
Well, from what I've gathered, Tom Pierce noticed that she did not weekly business meeting.
Yes.
He then notified her mother, which she then told her husband to go talk to Scott at work. He did that, and upon him returning, she then reports her missing at 2:37 p.m.
Right.
But if you look at the search warrant from Mark Wiegert that he issues to the judge to sign, he states that Karen Halbach called at 5 p.m., not 2:37, right. And he also states that she stated her car was blue, and that's a lie too.
Yes. Is anyone here rather surprised that Teresa Halbach goes missing for several days? And from my understanding, this is not an occurrence. Now, we all know, or hopefully you all know, that Teresa was living with Scott Blowdorn on a property very close to the mother's property. And she was last seen, in inverted commas, on October the 31st, but wasn't reported missing till November the 3rd. Christy, do you have any comments?
My memory could be a little foggy, but in those days that she was missing before she was reported, according to the printed out day planner sheet that we know Ryan Hilgass had in his possession, yes. Hadn't she missed something with her little sisters the day before she was reported missing?
I think there were a few events that she had written down on her day planner. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Yeah, she was supposed to go meet her sisters, and I believe... Go ahead.
My point is simply because, from what I understand, she was very dedicated to her sisters. And it's always been pretty puzzling to me that when she missed whatever was written in her day planner with her sisters the day before it just bothers me that she wasn't reported missing even one day before she really was reported missing. When she missed whatever it was in the day planner with her sisters, that has always bothered me.
Yes. Now, if you had a roommate, this is just a hypothetical, if you had a roommate and hadn't shown up for 3 or 4 days, would you be rather concerned?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Depending, absolutely. For the most part, I would. I had a roommate that used to, but it wasn't in Teresa's character to not come home for days. Correct?
But we don't know that.
Yes.
This is
Millbilly.
nobody actually knows Teresa Halbach. Technically, we can sit here and speculate all we want, but we actually know her or know how she was and how she reacted. Person she was, what activities she partaked in. We know that she liked to go to the bar because she was spotted at a bar on 2 occasions on the Friday night and Saturday night.
Yep, that's a very good point. BB, do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, they kind of kept anybody from being able to know her because they really sanitized her. The state did. The state's narrative of her is not correct at all, and it's been sanitized to a point of unrecognizableness.
Correct. Zoe, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, Scott's birthday was on November 2nd, and wasn't it strange she didn't reach out to him to wish him happy birthday? So that's just strange.
Yeah, it certainly is. Especially a roommate being missing for so long, one would be concerned. Okay, so we have at this, BB, do you have a comment?
Yeah, he was slightly more than a roommate. He was a roommate with benefits at a minimum.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll go into that in a moment. But clearly, it is rather strange that notification wasn't sent out rather sooner than later than when it was. Now, of course, the media now got involved. And if we have a look at slide 68, we can now see that on the media, they started reporting Teresa as being a missing woman. And what is interesting here is that you have the description of her car, the car that she used to drive around to her work and other arrangements. And I'd just like to state that Teresa was in the photography game. She worked at Pierce Studio. She also did wedding photography, but she also did photography for Auto Trader. And that's why she went that particular day on Halloween to the Avery salvage yard. It was an appointment, an arranged appointment to go photograph a van, which we'll show you in a minute. So there's nothing nefarious. That was her role. That was her job. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
I did before on slide 68.
Yes.
The point just has to be made that Karen Halbach lived across the street from Teresa. This was
correct.
It was actually Karen Halbach's former home that Teresa was in. I have children that are old enough to drive.
Yes.
And every single morning I get up and I look, and it gives me a feeling of comfort that I see their car in the driveway.
Yes.
Karen Halbach, no doubt, was of the same opinion. Karen Halbach knew what color that car was. There's no doubt in my mind. That car, she looked out her window probably every day to see if it was in the driveway, to know that her daughter was safe. It's incomprehensible to me that she did not know what color that car was.
Yes, and we will discuss that now, actually, because if you have a look on the news media, you can see that the car is described as a 1999 Toyota RAV4 dark green. And that is going to be very significant later on, as everyone will see. So the impression given by the media is that that's her car, and it's dark green in color. Guys, does anyone have any comments? Okay, so if we have a look at slide 69, and this is a real heartbreaker when you think about it, because the media, of course, went down to the Avery salvage yard. So they must have known where Teresa had gone on that particular day. And the media were talking with Steven Avery to say, look, did you see Teresa Halbach and what happened, et cetera, and what we can see here is the actual minivan that belonged to his sister that Teresa Halbach came on the Avery salvage yard to photograph. And she arrived approximately 2:45 p.m. In the afternoon to take photographs of the minivan. And her normal operations was she used to spend about 10 to 15 minutes photographing the vehicle and then receiving payment, and Steven Avery paid her $40 in cash. And at the same time, Teresa Halbach had given Steven an Auto Trader magazine, and according to Steven, Teresa Halbach had left the Avery salvage yard. And just a little point, you may not have picked it up, but you can see that he's actually approaching the minivan and going to open the door with his right hand. And that's the hand that had what on it, guys? Can anyone remember?
A cut on his finger.
Big Jeff, yeah, a cut on his finger.
A reopened cut on his finger.
Yes, Millbilly.
Because that's the thing that I don't see why his defense didn't. He was not bleeding on the 31st.
Correct.
He wasn't bleeding until the 3rd.
That is correct.
That's the night he reopened his cut. Barb's vehicle.
Yes, that's a very, very good point. But note, he doesn't hesitate at all to use the hand that apparently has got a cut that's healing. And of course, later on, that is significant because when we come to have a look at the forensic evidence, especially looking at the Toyota RAV4, they found none of his fingerprints or blood on any door handle, both outside and inside the Toyota RAV4. But it was very interesting that he didn't hesitate to use his right hand.
Well, you also notice
that door.
Yes. You also notice he's reaching for the door.
Yes.
In his pocket, like he's going to the keys and.
Yes. Yep, a very good point. Guys, are there any other questions?
I've got one. Do you guys think that Steven was a little too trusting of the media, being, they were there when he got out? Because it doesn't seem like they were looking out for his best interest either.
There's no question, in my opinion, in my mind, that the media were there to monitor his reactions. Because if you notice, when the media talked to him, they did a lot of close-ups of his hand, where he had this cut, and his face to judge, to have a look at his reactions. Because I said to him, have you seen this girl? Are you concerned about her? And what struck me was the absolute honesty of Steven, his genuine concern and care, because he knew what it was like to be deprived, to be in prison. And he really showed, he put his heart on his sleeve. Guys, would you agree with that?
I would.
Number plate, yes. Yep. Anybody else? All right. Okay. So yes, Big Jeff.
I just wanted to concur. He is very talkative to the media, and at this time, he was still a very sympathetic figure in the media, having been released. So they did not come at him in an accusatory way at all. It was seeking information, and he was very much straightforward with that information, even indicating that he had let the police freely search his home.
Unbelievable. That is correct. Millbilly, do you have that comment?
And you got to take into consideration every interview every person that's talked to him, he always says the same thing. Even Teresa's cousin, David Beach, says, she came between 2 and
Yes.
His story has never changed one bit.
That is correct. He has always shown consistency, even when under pressure from his interrogators. He always maintained the same story, and he was consistent. Yes, Millbilly.
And when they're interviewing him in Crivets,
yes,
he says, "I'm just going to say it. I think Manitowoc's got it out for me."
Yeah. Yes. Yes, he has. And what is remarkable, and we'll discuss this a bit later on, was that he hinted very early on to the media that the sheriff or the MTSO were out to get him. And he was saying this very early on in the piece. Now, remember, this is a man who was had a bill named after him. This is a man that spoke to some of the highest politicians in Wisconsin. This is a man that wanted to see justice, right? And he was in the middle of a civil lawsuit with the 2 big prizes about to be deposed, the sheriff and the DA. So he knew, he had spoken to the media before. He was comfortable with the media and he had nothing to hide. Guys, would you agree with that sentiment? That he was a genuine person?
Yes, I do.
Yep. BB?
Yes, yeah. I find it, just by letting the cops in when they asked. Yes.
Yep.
He was always very upfront, honest, genuine about it.
Yes. Millbilly. Yes.
And that's the thing. When the cops talk to him, the cop knows exactly who he is.
Yes, they do. They know who Steven Avery is. I mean, he's almost, I hate to use the word, but he's almost like a celebrity now. People know who he is. He's an important figure. And you're correct, Millbilly. I believe it was Colburn, correct me if I'm wrong.
Andrew Colburn.
Yep. Now, Andrew Colburn, yep. Sorry, Millbilly, continue.
Like the whole time frame is bullshit.
Yeah. But he had no problems with allowing Andrew Colburn to come inside his trailer. Andrew Colburn stated...
No, yep. Colburn didn't go in his trailer. Colburn talked to Steven Avery outside his mother's house around 6 p.m.
Yes.
Link and Remaker are the ones that actually made entry into Steven's the next day.
Right. Okay. Yep. All right. But sorry, Big Jeff.
Ask Millbilly if in that search did Link and Remaker report any strange smells?
No. And the thing about that, the report it only lists Remaker as the one that went there. It doesn't.
Right. Okay. But at the end of the day, Steven Avery did not block anyone from going inside and having a look. Is that correct? Guys, do we have any comments on that? He did not stop anyone from going inside the trailer. Bibi.
Well, and that also cuts down his narrative of that the state's narrative that he had 5 days to clean it up.
Correct. Because, I mean, these are trained investigators. They're trained police officers. It would have taken them not even 30 seconds to realize that something nefarious had gone on. And of course, we'll discuss apparently, allegedly, what had happened to Teresa. But no one stated that they found anything out of place when they had a look inside his trailer. All right. Okay, guys, so let's have a look at slide number 70. And this really just shows you where Teresa was living at the time with Scott. And to the right-hand side is Teresa's stepfather, who happens to be the brother of Karen's husband, who passed away at a fairly young age. So Karen married her husband's brother. And what is interesting here, these images, these pictures were taken, I believe, on November the 4th, if we have a look at MAM. And these are the expressions that both the stepdad and the mother gave. Guys, does anyone want to make any comment about that? Christy.
They look like they're already grieving. And at this point, if she's only reported missing and they don't know anything, where's your hope? I've seen other people in the media pleading for their missing loved one, and they have hope. They don't look like this.
Yes, it's a very, now, I just want to say straight up front, everyone is different. Everyone behaves different.
Absolutely.
But what is remarkable here, Christy, is that they both look the same.
Yes. They both look like they've just gotten a blow to the gut. They've just learned bad news. Right now, you just haven't seen somebody for a few days.
Correct. And the other interesting person on this image is the photograph with Teresa Halbach and her now, back then, her ex-boyfriend, Ryan Hilligus. Does anyone want to make any comment about that? Big Jeff.
Well, I'm not in law enforcement, but it just seems to me that very often the first suspect is the former boyfriend, sexual partners. We know that the investigation to Ryan was minimal, jokish.
Yes. Yes, Christy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Ryan, in his own testimony at trial, say that he only ever told law enforcement he was a friend? He never disclosed being an ex-boyfriend until much, much later?
He said close friend, and he also stated in his trial testimony that Scott Blowden were just friends with Teresa, no sexual history whatsoever. So everything was downplayed, right? He was a good friend. She was living with Scott, but, she lived in one room and he lived in another. And, of course, that actually was not true. But sorry, Bibi, a comment.
Oh, it just on that, once again, the sanitation of Teresa.
Yes.
The narrative from the get-go has been, the good Christian girl.
Yes.
Only went to the bars because she liked to sing karaoke.
Yes. And that actually is a very, very important point, because what it does is it immediately puts an impression in society. And it happened from the get-go. Christy, a comment.
Never mind. I just completely lost my train of thought. Go on.
Big Jeff.
Harp on the excellent point that BB just made. What is the real victimology of Teresa? I mean, when you do this whitewash interpret Teresa, you do lose. It's not. We're not trying to play the victim here, because that would be the wrong thing to do. But you do need to know who the victim was. What was she? What was she really like? And what is her true potential victim status? What were the real threats in her life?
Yes, Millbilly.
I've already had an issue with how Mike said the grieving process would take days, weeks, years, and she's still just a missing person.
Correct. That was indeed very, very bizarre. And just, I've never encountered anything like that at all. All right. So I think we've all said the same thing. Victimology. if you look at the trial testimonies, you're correct. Bibi said the same thing. It is a sanitization. It is making Teresa to be something that she really was not. And as a consequence of doing that, those individuals that were very close in her life were not investigated at all. And hence we have the beginning of something called tunnel vision. And that had a drastic effect in the investigation and still does to today. The obvious suspects that you would want to question and interrogate were not. And certain individuals played key roles with law enforcement, which was rather remarkable when you think about it. Okay, so if we have a look at slide 71, you can see here the Halbach family. They look like a normal, happy family. Nothing going on here. They're all together. They're all smiling. Now, my understanding is that the Halbach family were dairy farmers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Welcome.
That is correct.
Yeah. Yes. And they are also very respected members of the community. And my understanding is that they were a Christian family. So I know this is going to be a bit of a pretentious question, but knowing what we know now, would you say that Teresa, the victim, was your typical Christian? Who would like to comment on that? A Big Jeff.
Since somebody has to, Teresa was having an affair with a married man.
Yes.
She was taking. She had part of her business was taking potentially respectful but nude photos, which is it's edgy. I'm not making a comment about it, but it's certainly edgy.
Yes.
She was having an affair. She had an affair with a roommate. She was having an affair with Ryan Hilligus. I mean, she was probably, what you consider, a sexually active person, not necessarily in a bad way.
Don't forget about don't forget about Bradley Check.
Oh yes,
the married man I was talking about. Yeah, and
yes,
is that what you would want announced in church? So
yeah,
we're trying to portray this Christian image. I don't think that's the type of thing that you'd want portrayed. Not that I have any comments about it.
Yes.
It goes to the whitewashing of Teresa, or what we call the sanitization of Teresa.
Yes. And I just want to state before anyone comments, I didn't ask that question to be disrespectful to Teresa and her memory. I asked that question because it was important to find out her risk, her exposure, her activity. What type of activity was she doing that potentially put her in harm's way? And what you'll find is in the investigation that this was not followed up. It was mentioned, but all leads went cold. Christy, do you have a comment?
I was going to say exactly what Big Jeff did. Yes, it's the truth. We're not speaking ill of the dead. None of us were saints. I had my fun. I was in my 20s. We all did it. There's nothing wrong with what she was doing, but what you just said, it put her at a different risk. And it's important that we know not just who the suspect is, but it is also important that we know who the victim really was, and who they portrayed her to be was who she was. But there was also another side to her that they just didn't let be known, because look what this horrible man did to this poor girl.
Correct. And it's incredible. I know it was a Freudian slip, but prosecutor Ken Kratz actually called her a little girl, which was remarkable. You can't get any worse than that. Christy, do you have a comment?
Look at his wife, and that it wasn't a Freudian slip. It's what he likes.
Yeah. Yep. Now, look, we can do another 10 podcasts on just Ken Kratz.
Moving on.
We do need to move on. Now, if we have a look at slide 71, I said we had a look at the Halbach family. They look like a wholesome, healthy, fun-loving, very hardworking family. And what became pretty obvious is that Mike Halbach became the family spokesperson. He's the one that confronted the media during a day's interrogation sessions. He was always talking about what had happened. He freely talked to reporters and he gave his opinions. But what struck me was that in his mind, both Stephen and later Brendan, which is the nephew of Stephen, in his mind, they were guilty. In actual fact, he kept on saying, they're lying, they've done this, which is rather remarkable. We haven't even got to the end of the trial. They've already made up their minds. So Mike Halbach was the so-called family spokesperson. You hardly saw the parents. It was really Mike that took the candle and became the face of the Halbach family. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I often wonder why it was Mike and not Tim, because Tim had just gone to law school and became a lawyer. I think he would be more accustomed to speaking in front of a room full of people, and probably would have been better at it than Mike, because Mike does say some rather bizarre things. From that it would be a mess when his sister is found alive, to a few minutes and we'll be done grieving for her or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Billy, do you have a comment?
He was the first one to go on the news.
Right.
When they were handing out flyers at
Yep. Yes, and also don't forget that him and Ryan Hilligus were involved in search parties. So they obviously had some type of association. That must have known each other. That I don't know. Well, being an ex-boyfriend, one would have expected Mike to have known who Ryan was. So maybe that's why he became the spokesperson, because of his familiarity with probably Scott, with probably Ryan. Okay. Billy, do you have a comment?
No. Go on.
Okay.
I have a quick one.
Yes.
Yeah, just that Mike and Scott and Teresa and Ryan, they all went to school together within the same little time frame there of a couple years.
Yes.
Another thing I want to point out. Every time Scott calls dispatch or Ryan calls dispatch,
yes,
one or the other is right there.
Okay. So basically, to get their story straight, would you say that, Billy?
It's something like when Scott Blodorn calls Leslie Lemieux to tell him he's got the plate info, you hear Ryan Hilligus in the background.
Right. Okay.
And then when the dispatcher calls Ryan about the nasty comment left on the website, you hear Scott in the background.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very interesting, and that's going to become very important.
Every time they sign into they're together.
Yes.
And why are they? They're signing in? Why are they even being let in there? If it's a crime scene.
Correct. And again, we can spend another podcast just on that, which is rather remarkable. But guys, let's just step back a little bit here. So we know that Mike had become the family spokesperson. Let's have a look at slide 72. And boy, isn't this an iconic photograph? This has caused a lot of controversy. For the very reason that people believed that this photograph was fake, that it had been photoshopped. It caused people to go into a tailspin regarding the color of the RAV, very controversial. And does anyone actually know who apparently took this photograph? Any comments? Bibi.
Millbilly would probably be the best to speak on that.
Millbilly, do you have a comment? Who took this photograph? Allegedly.
I believe it was Tom Pierce.
Yes.
And I believe it was the 29th of October.
Right.
And it was at De Pere Park.
Yes.
The Voyager Park in De Pere. She was also had a not too far from there with a family. And this lady calls in this dispatch wanting to know if they took her photos into evidence because she never got them.
Right.
Not to
Very
mention,
interesting.
Teresa Halbach also with gas right there in De Pere.
Yes, that's right. All right, now I'm going to ask a bit of a controversial question. Having a look at this photograph, what can you tell me about the color of that RAV? Let's go through our panel. BB, what color do you think that RAV is?
Well, it appears to be, in this picture, I've seen this picture in lots of colors. But in this picture, it appears to be dark green, a greenish blue, actually, kind of, yeah.
All right, Big Jeff.
I want to second the sentiment that I've seen this picture in a lot of colors as well. In this picture, I would say that it appears a greenish blue.
A greenish blue. Christy?
I do want to mention that I was a body shop manager from 2000 and from February of 2000 until, I don't know, September, October of 2007. This is a color called Mystic Teal. And
now look at this. We have a body panel expert who just happened to say Mystic Teal.
This is a Toyota color called Mystic Teal that will look completely different on a sunny day, on a cloudy day, on a snowy day. You can this color changes color, and personally, our own eyeballs see color differently. You do not see blues the same way I see blues. It is I am not going to get on the whole how many different RAV4s are there. Is this picture photoshopped? I'm going to say that if it's really Mystic Teal, it's not a reliable color, period. So many people can have a different opinion of what this is.
Yep.
Well, and I'd like to just make one small statement here. Yes, women have more cones and rods in their eyes than men do. Okay. That's just science. And so women see more colors than men do.
Well, I'm impressed that Christy said Mystic Teal by looking at that picture. That is amazing. Millbilly, what do you think that color is of that car?
I've seen different colors of cars. Like this picture, I want to see the actual original picture, not a scanned one.
Yes, but if you were to have a guess,
I've seen Mystic Teal RAVs drive past me, and I've seen green RAVs drive past me. You can definitely tell the difference, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I see a RAV, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yes, it does.
And they also have that royal blue color too. So
yes, they do.
They have green, they have Mystic Teal, and they have blue. So they have sapphire blue or whatever it is. Yeah.
Correct. But we can actually go to the Toyota website. We can have a look at what the colors were for 1999. So we know what colors were in, what colors were out. OB1, if you were to look at this picture, what color would you say that RAV was?
In my opinion, I believe it's, I want to say between Mystic Teal or Hunter Green.
Okay. A number plate.
Well, I've got a question for Christy, and I think I've seen this somewhere. Didn't the color code say chameleon Mystic Teal?
I don't remember the chameleon part. I just remember the Mystic Teal. And the reason I remember this is because we did work on Toyotas, And this color is not easy to match when you have
pearlescent.
Yes.
It's got pearlescent paint.
It's a three-stage process. And even when I don't care how good of a body shop you take it to, if it's been hit and it's been painted, I can tell you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Because there's slight variations.
Yes.
So I'm actually looking at this picture right now on a 50-inch TV HD. I wanted to watch the slideshow as well.
Yes.
The back half actually looks blue. There is a spot right over the gas door that has a shade of green, and then the front actually has some. And this is because of the pearlescent paint. You're seeing that green on the front, and it's all light shading.
It's all light shading, and I believe that it was not, if I had to guess, this was either very early in the morning or later in the afternoon as the sun was setting. I'm not sure which way is east or west, but this was not high noon on a bright sunny day.
She's looking west.
All right, so the sun's setting. So this is in the evening.
Yes,
this is late afternoon.
Around 4. Which coincides with hearsay claims to have seen her at the studio.
Right. Okay.
And if you look at the colors of the trees, this would be October.
Yes.
Right.
I agree.
Okay. So basically this was very, very close to the time that she disappeared. This is a very recent photograph.
This is very possibly the last
2 days.
2 days. 2 days.
Whoa, that's remarkable. And the other important point.
Can I point something out? Just looking at this picture.
Of course you can.
As far as Hillegas's testimony, if this is a couple of days before the crash, look at the light lens that's in there.
Look at the parking lamp. Yes.
Yep.
It's there, and this is only a couple of days.
Yep, no question. The other comment that I was going to make is the car appears to be in very good nick condition. It looks very clean, looked after, and that's going to come into play when we actually see the vehicle on the Avery salvage yard. It looks like it's gone through, what can I say, hell. It looks very, very different to how it looks now. Now, look, she's a proud lady. Look at the way she's dressed. She carries her equipment. She's got a smile on her face. I can't see someone like that having a car that's very messy and untidy. Am I at a place in that comment? What do you think? Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to ask what your opinion was.
What my opinion was?
Yeah.
I would definitely not say dark blue. Dark green. I see more of a bluey green mixture. And the reason why I say that is because what Christy said, I've got a car that's called stone blue. And during the sunlight, it actually looks blue. But during dusk and early morning, it looks grey. It's the way the light hits the paint. And it's remarkable that the reason why I focused on the color is because if you look at the missing poster, it says dark green. So if you're looking for a RAV4, you're going to be looking for a dark green RAV4. And when we have a look at photos of the RAV4 on the Avery salvage yard, oh my Lord, it's blue. It really is blue. So interesting that everyone sort of said a different type of comment. BB.
Oh, mine was to your other question about her looking professional and whatnot. Yes. I have a niece that's professional and looks very professional, but her car sometimes is a nightmare, and it looks like she lives in it because she's the girl and packs lots of clothes along with her for events in case she has to change or weather changes or so. Yes. It could be a mess inside. It could be full of clothes and bags of clothes and extra shoes and whatnot.
Yes. Okay. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
I do. if to the position of Karen Halbach when you're calling in your daughter as a potential missing person.
Yes.
Probably in, one of the worst states that you've ever been in your whole life, because the thought of your child going missing is just horrific.
It is horrific.
And one of the best chances that you have to find is the information that you're about to relay to the police.
Correct.
Ask you, what color is her car? We have all this stuff that Christy Lynn is undoubtedly correct about. Would you say, dark green, or would you say, her car is a really funny color, and some lights it looks blue, some lights it looks green, or would you just say dark green and get on to the next question?
Yes, she stated dark green.
You are 100. As a mother, I would absolutely be very specific about the color of my daughter's car if it was that color.
Yes.
I wouldn't get that wrong. I wouldn't get that wrong.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the MTSO get information from DOT, and it actually said the color of the car was Mystic to Mika? There is the Millbilly.
I think it's no mistake when they write, I wanted the evidence. Toyota.
Yes.
And then they cross it out and write 99, because the car found on Avery's is a 98.
Hold that thought, Millbilly. That's a podcast in itself. But Bibi.
Yes, and like Christy Lynn said, as a mother, I would have been very specific. I'd have made sure I mentioned green, blue, blue, green.
Yes.
Sometimes it looks green, sometimes it looks blue, because it's one of those kind of paint colors. There would have been a lengthier discussion about that. I wouldn't have just said, it's green, let's move on to the next question. No, I don't know. She's got tattoos, whatever.
Yes. Remember, the car is green until Pam of God finds the car.
Correct.
Right.
Then the color changes.
Yes.
Which is bizarre to me, which I find extremely bizarre.
And Pam of God calls into dispatch at 6:30 saying, I just heard on the news that do you know where they're going to be doing that? And the dispatcher tells her, no, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then 4 hours later, she's calling back saying, I think I just found her car.
Yes. And for our listeners, Pam of God is Pam Sturm, Teresa's cousin. Big Jeff.
Yes. I believe that the color of the car was corroborated with the DOT information, and that color is reported as green in the DOT information, and it is the VIN that back to the Mystic Tail Mica.
Right. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The DOT says green.
Yes, there is a report that says green. You're correct. And then there is another report that says Mystic till Mika, and it actually gives the number. And Christy Lynn will probably be able to tell us that it's that number that's important to paint match. Christy.
Absolutely. That is the number that you input into the computer. And that number tells the painter because that paint, it doesn't come mixed. That's a mixture of greens and blues and purples. And it's very specific. That can sits on a scale, and you put in 5 grams of this one and 4 grams, you mix it. So that number is very specific to that formula.
Yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but in the forensic photographs that we see now, there is no picture of inside the hood that shows that disc with the number of the car, the color of the car. I haven't seen one.
It should be on the driver's door jamb somewhere.
Right. But I don't think anyone has seen that number.
No, not to the best of my knowledge. Nobody's seen it. And somebody commented the other day, I think it was Obi-Wan maybe, that when the doors open to the car, you can see that little sticker plate, whatever, is not in the door jamb where it should be.
Right. Christy, do you have a comment?
No, no. Go ahead.
Okay, Millbilly.
Well, the definite proof that there's two cars, because we got things on one photo of a car, they're gone.
Yep. Yes. What we'll do, Millbilly, later on, we will discuss all of that. That's a very, very important point. So if we progress to slide 73, what you find here is that there are missing girl posters that are made. There were two of them. On both posters, they refer to the color of the RAV4 as being dark green. So we have missing flyers. We have the news broadcasts that all say the same thing, that the RAV4 was a dark green color. Now, does anyone have a comment? Millbilly, do you have a quick comment?
If you read, it starts out green. Even the officers that are positioned to watch the RAV, they state that it's green.
Correct.
And slowly it changes colors.
There is a CASO report. I forgot the name of the officer who was standing right next to the RAV. And in his report, he wrote the word dark green, I think 4 or 5 times to keep it consistent, which is rather remarkable because he was actually standing right next to the car. Bibi, a quick comment.
Yes, somebody in the live has pointed out, wanted to know, so the photo isn't photoshopped then after all?
No, 100%. Well, no, because her reflection is in the car.
Yes.
That location is real.
It's real. It is real. Millbilly, do you want to make a comment on who found it?
Calf, one of the recent we have, she actually dreamt the name of the cross streets, and we had been looking for this location, me and her, for about maybe 2 months, and I finally gave it up. I was like, I everywhere, and then out of the blue, I get a message, found it.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? And sure enough, she was right. And she had a dream.
Yes.
And she found it with a dream.
Yep, and she was 100% spot on. 100% spot on. Bibi.
And I have also went there with my niece and a group of people in a minivan and taken a very similar shot. Of course, we didn't measure the minivan or whatever. It just happened to be what we were traveling in.
Yes.
And the height appearance seems kind of legit because my niece was very similar height to her, and the van was a similar height to the RAV. So that the whole thing was, she looks like she towers above it. If you take the picture from a lower angle, it pretty much measures out.
Yeah, the perspective is spot on.
Yeah,
spot on. So it's a real image. Obi-Wan,
I believe so. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, I think she towers over that vehicle. There's just something weird about her size, and she's definitely not that big.
Yes.
I'm 5'10", and if I stood next to that vehicle right there, I guarantee you my head would not reach for that roof.
But if you're back that far, and if you take the picture from a slightly lower angle, if you're using one of those kind of cameras like she has that you hold down by your stomach and you look through the top viewfinder, if it's like Tom Pierce there taking the picture, he would have one of those cameras and it would be from a lower angle. And then that makes you could put a person between you and a house and get down on your knee or lay down on the ground and take a picture of them, and they're going to be as tall as the house.
It is shot. Obi-Wan is actually shot from slightly below, and we had another researcher who Billy knows, who actually got her son to take a photograph of herself in front of her SUV, and it was exactly the same. Her head was above the. Yep.
Later, I could send you the picture of my niece where we did it with the minivan.
Yes.
And pay attention to that photo. She's got a duct tape lanyard in her hand.
Yes, that's another very, very good point. So, guys, I think we can be fairly comfortable and state that photograph 72 is real. It's legit. It's not photoshopped. Others have reproduced it by doing a live demonstration, and the location was actually found by a researcher by the name of Kaf, who had a dream, a dream, and she found the location and proved it, which is truly remarkable. So on slide 73, we discussed the missing posters, and each of them said that the RAV4 was dark green. So guys, if we have a look now at slide 74, this is where it starts to get very, very interesting. So now they're searching for Teresa Halbach. And guess who leads the charge of the missing person search party? Her ex-boyfriend, Ryan Hilligus, and also her live-in partner, Scott Blowdorn, are involved in handing out leaflets, and the leaflets are put all over the place in shop windows, on poles. And guess what? I found out that the Avery salvage yard also happened to have one of these posters in their front office. Okay, does anyone want to make a comment on that? We all good? Okay, so is anyone slightly suspicious the fact that Ryan Hilligus took a front foot approach in being part of the search party? Big Jeff.
I just can't tell you how creepy it is in my mind that he moved into her house. In addition to
yes,
was he sleeping in her bed?
Oh well, that I don't know. But he definitely was there, and we know what he did later on. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, a couple. Jeff, there probably would have been guest rooms in that big house because it used to be the family's house. So
okay,
yeah, there wouldn't be a shortage probably of bedrooms. I don't know about beds, but anyway. And he followed what should have triggered the police for him skyrocketing to the top of the number one suspect list.
Correct.
He had all the earmarkers. He did everything. He inserted himself into the case. He inserted himself into her house.
Yeah, but that's why we got all this. We got all this stuff over, but then we have Steven Avery.
Correct.
Yeah, he fit the poster child for everything they're supposed to look at.
Correct. And in actual fact, Ken Kratz was asked this, and Ken Kratz in the trial basically weaved his way out of it by saying that, oh, no, we did a funnel approach, not a tunnel approach, and hence he could explain why the resources only went in one direction towards Steven Avery. Obi-Wan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, because they had him moving. Well, he moved into the house. He's going through her property and basically handing it away to law enforcement, and they're relocating. It's probably evidence, but they're relocating this to Avery's property.
Yes, all the evidence takes. All the evidence takes. All the received from Ryan Hilligus.
Yep. Yes.
Anybody see that, they would think oh, well, how's this even right? You know, like you're bringing evidence onto the property from another location.
Yes.
And for what? For what purpose would you need it there for?
Yes. And the
That's
interesting
contamination of a crime scene.
Yes, it is. The interesting thing is that they had maps of the Avery salvage yard. They had it gridded. So they definitely were going to search that property. There's no question about that. Christy, do you have a comment?
Depending on what level and what theory you go with on who's involved and what part they played,
yes,
I want to point out one thing. The one thing I do have is Ken Kratz's book. We'll talk about that later, but I want to bring up.
So she's the one.
I'm the one. I'm the one that has.
Yeah, she's the one who bought it.
It was really quick. It was the first thing I read after I watched Making a Murderer. I never even imagined going to Twitter or Facebook or anything. I never even thought it until he mentions it in his book. So I read this book, and the one thing I want to point out, I just pulled it up and it's in front of me. There's a Mark Wiegert, and this is in the book. Mark Wiegert knocks on Ken Kratz's door before the workday is over on the 3rd. And he sits down in the chair across from Kratz and he says, "We have a missing person, blah, 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 blah. You're never going to believe where she was last seen." They were focused. So if we assume Karen Halbach calls her missing somewhere between 2:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. because Mark Wiegert is in Ken Kratz's office before 5 p.m. saying, "Hey, listen to this shit." And they're focused on Steven before the close of business on the 3rd.
No doubt.
That's why these dimwits were never investigated.
Well, that's why you don't hear anything about Weaver on dispatch at all. All you hear is Karen Halbach reported missing, and then at 5 o'clock, Leslie mystery person report.
Yes.
But
sorry, Billy.
We got Wiegert calling Manitowoc and talks to Sergeant Colborne and informs them to go to the. So that was before 5 p.m. That's a fact, because if Wiegert was looking for a detective but talked to Colborne, Link calls Queso dispatch.
That's right. That's right.
5:07 p.m.
Yep.
That means that Colborne talked to Wiegert before 5 p.m. Steven states that the cop showed up around dinner time. Well, he's talking to Jody at his mother's at.
That's correct.
Starts. They're talking until 5:53.
Yes.
He doesn't mention anything about cops. So Colburn was there at 6 p.m.
Right. Okay. And that is on the 3rd?
On the 3rd.
On the 3rd. And look, I just want to make a comment. What Christy Lynn said. I know this is going to sound bizarre coming from me, but I'm going to buy the book as well, because not to support Ken, but to actually find how his mind ticked, because in that book there'll be pieces of information that very few people know, and you're going to need that information to connect the dots, the jigsaw puzzle pieces. That's why I'm going to buy and read it from cover to cover. Christy, do you think I'm crazy?
I think Christy can lend you. Don't buy it. I think Christy can lend you her copy, and you can read it, and that way he gets one less book sold.
Yeah,
no way. I heard that piece of trash is now like $30.
Oh no.
First of all,
let her lend you hers.
I didn't buy it. My husband did. No, we'll talk about this later. I have every intention on giving it to you. We'll talk about this later.
Lovely. Big Jeff, do you have a? Oh, sorry.
I'll give it to all of you.
I'll chip you my copy.
Okay. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
I do. Don't they have Australia.
You just broke up a little bit. What did you say, Big Jeff?
Don't they have libraries in Australia?
Of course. But I highly doubt that book's going to be available. I hope
in
it's
an
on
Australian library. I doubt it, and they probably wouldn't have the digital one either.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to buy, the digital copy.
Well, Christy's going to hook you up. It's good.
Okay, I'll talk to Christy. All right, thank you very much, guys. But we can see that the search party is mainly led by Ryan Hilliger's Scott, and this really, to me, is remarkable. This is the image between Halbach and Hilliger's, where they are both looking at each other very, very carefully, making sure that nobody says the wrong thing. And this is about going on the Avery salvage yard. And to me, both look like they had their hands in the cookie jar. It can't be random that they decided to send Pam of God to the Avery salvage yard with a map and a camera and a direct phone number to Sheriff Pagel. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Oh, yeah. That picture is a still from a little news footage of the two of them where they were acting extremely on edge and extremely bizarre.
Yes.
I'll be kind and say bizarre.
Yes, they wanted to make sure they got their stories
shady
right.
And sketchy as hell in that video.
Yes. Does anyone else have any comments about those two? Now remember, one is the ex-boyfriend and the other one is the brother of Teresa, a Big Jeff.
When you listen to the dispatch calls, law enforcement is very, very careful to dissociate themselves with any of the so-called civilian or family searches.
Yes.
If they were somehow, if law enforcement was running it, then this could very quickly become an illegal search and seizure practice.
Yes.
Even a guilter might be covering up the fact that there were some shenanigans going on with civilian searches that they were collaborating with that probably went a little bit too deep.
Yes, Bibi.
Don't they refer to Ryan Hilliges as a unofficial or untrained police something?
Well, the thing is, Millbilly, can you comment? You've heard a lot of the dispatch calls. Didn't they also refer some people directly to Ryan?
Yeah. Every time somebody called in about searching or helping to search, they were. Well, at first it was and her husband.
Yes.
That was for like a day or two, and then everything went to Ryan Hill.
Right. Right, which is rather remarkable. So here, let's cut to the chase. Here we have potentially a suspect, right? An ex-boyfriend of Teresa Halbach, who's leading the expedition of a search party, and who just happens to meet up with Pam Sturm, Nicole Sturm, and both of them are given a map. They had a camera, and they also had a direct phone line to Sheriff Pagel, which is rather remarkable because it came out in the trial that they were the only two people that were given all of these materials to go search the Avery salvage yard. All right. So
also they showed up over an hour late. So
yes,
they issued all these other quadrants out to all these other people and saved back the Avery salvage yard as if they knew that she was going to come and then give her this and the other stuff that nobody else was given.
Yes, Christy, do you have a comment on that? Yes.
And here, don't forget to take this camera with you in case you see something interesting.
Yeah, which is rather remarkable because, guys, we have to remember that the Avery salvage yard, I believe, was about 40 acres and had well over 3,000 vehicles. It was huge.
Well, and it's got to make you wonder if the pictures of the car weren't already on the camera,
as
in a map to lead them to
it.
Yes,
I understand what you mean. Correct. Christy, do you have a comment?
There is somebody that has walked the Ham of God trail, and there is just absolutely no way there's no way she found the car in the amount of time that she claims that she did in order to do it, she would have had to walk straight there and not look at a single car from point A to point B. And if you're looking, if that's your goal, why are you not looking at everything?
Yes, but Christy, don't you know it was the Holy Spirit that guided her to the RAV4? It was the Holy Spirit after all.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yes, I know. I know. I was being
another day.
Or the pictures on the camera, or the little dotted line on the map that he gave.
I'm going to go with the dotted line on the map.
Yes. Very, very good point. Okay, but we'll discuss that in a minute. Now, if we have a look at slide 75, now this is mind blowing. The day before, on the 4th, they had a flyover, right? So. Oops. Okay, we're all good. Okay, they had a flyover on the 4th. So they flew over the Avery salvage yard. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to ask the question if anybody was aware. We know that they took video on that flyover. How many minutes?
Yes. In fact, it was over 3 hours, I believe.
How many minutes of video exist from the 4th?
Not very. It was about 20 or 30 minutes. I think it was very heavily edited. How many?
3 minutes. Between 3 and 4 minutes exists from the 4th, and the rest of that video is from the 5th.
Is gone. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a difference between the 4th and the 5th flyover.
Yes.
One is by a plane, and you can hear the engine. On the 5th, the 5th was a helicopter.
Correct.
There's two different planes, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name that was on the 4th who was in the plane, opposed to Wendy being in there on the 5th in the helicopter.
Yes, because you can actually tell by the images, because you can see that when they were in a helicopter, they hovered over a particular area and focused on it, whereas on the plane, they were constantly moving, of course.
Right.
But what is interesting was that, now I went through the testimony, I forgot the gentleman's name, but everyone in the plane never said a word. They never said a word. They knew what they were looking for based on the description. And no one said, yes, we have found it. No, we haven't found it. They just kept it very, very quiet. So they did a flyover over the salvage yard and the surrounding areas and the woods. When the report was written, they said they failed to find Teresa's vehicle on the 4th. Right now, we know that when Pam Sturm took photographs, actually it was her daughter, it's obvious that what's sticking out at the back is a big sign that says RAV4. You can't miss it. Yet, according to the report on the 4th, no one said anything to the pilot. I think the pilot was Drum. No one said, the passengers did not say, oh, look, it's down there. They just kept it very, very quiet. And my belief, it's only a belief, it's only speculation, but if we're talking about potentially a planting scenario, what better way to find where to plant it, but from an aerial view? Especially if you take photographs and video, you would know precisely where to place the RAV. Guys, what do you think about that? Plausible? Big Jeff.
I think that's very plausible. And the question that we should be asking is, why is that video edited? Why did that video need to get edited?
Well, sorry, BB.
I've also seen stills where that appear to be cut out of a flyover, and where you can clearly see that the car isn't there, and there's no tracks in the sand. And then compared to the next day when the car is there, and there's tracks in the sand in the rock quarry right below.
Yes. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
Just by analyzing the audio from the flyover, you can tell when the engines change because the frequencies change.
Yes, good point. Very, very good point. There's no doubt that law enforcement or whoever took the video heavily edited it, because if they flew over that spot and there clearly was no RAV4, the whole case goes out the window, because the state is stating this, that Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey, I know I'm jumping a little bit, they killed Teresa and they drove the RAV4 on the 31st to the pit and they left it there, they dumped it there. If a flyover happens on the 4th and there is no Toyota RAV4 there, then that's going to be very, very hard to explain. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, because people get confused when they see that flyover, and they're not really paying attention to the sound of the plane and the helicopter. They see you can see the switch. And that's why where it was recorded over, but they had Manitowoc officers down there where Teresa's RAV4 was sitting before it was sitting there. Like they had them standing right there in the same exact spot, location, and all before the RAV4 was even there. That's exactly what they were doing up there. They were looking for a way to get that RAV4 on the property without being spotted.
Yep. Unbelievable. Yep, I agree with that. Now we know, and we'll discuss this in. Number plate. Do you have a comment?
Actually, I've got a really peculiar question that I just thought about.
Yes.
You ready for it?
Yes. Yes, we are.
In Brendan's interrogation, they asked what Steven did to the hood latch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did they never think to ask Brendan what happened to the light bezel? Who damaged the car?
Yep. I don't believe that was talked about at all.
And they knew about it.
Yes, they did.
Yes, very interesting.
Why is there a hole and then there isn't?
Oh boy. Yeah, Millbilly, that is a phenomenal find.
I think that's next week's podcast.
I think, we'll look. Don't worry, guys, and our listeners. We will discuss the forensic evidence. Don't worry about that. And a lot of good people here and elsewhere have done fantastic presentations. For example, Big Jeff did a presentation on the phone that was found by Pam of God and filmed by Andy Colburn. So please have a listen to that presentation. Superb. So what we're going to do with our podcast is that we can do these little mini side projects where we can look at specific things, and everyone on the panel has got a different expertise where they can put in their material. So we will encapsulate all of that, I promise. But so on the 4th with the flyover, they didn't find anything. They never mentioned anything, and the report said it was negative. They couldn't find a Toyota RAV4. But when the Toyota RAV4 was eventually found on the 5th, all hell broke loose. Literally all hell broke loose. And you can see in picture slide number 75, the police officers were already saying at that time, okay, is he in custody? And one other officer, this is all recorded, says, other than the car, do we have anything else? So they're already focusing on one man only. Guys, do we have any comments about that? Big Jeff.
flyover portion of the 5th, you can see the tarped rab very clearly.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Multiple different angles. Why was it so hard to find in the 4th? If it was really there, would that have been deemed an illegal search if they had found it on the 4th?
Well, yes. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
I just believe that they already previously planned on arresting Avery at this particular time when this comment was made.
Yes. It's almost as though they couldn't actually help themselves. They were preempted into all these actions without no evidence whatsoever, and they had to hold back. But you can see that they were very eager to get onto Steven Avery very, very quickly. Guys, any other comments? Christy, do you have a comment?
They were eager from the 3rd. They were eager from even discovering she had been anywhere near Avery salvage yard.
Yes.
They were eager from second one.
Yes. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, everything seems out of step, out of time. Everything is skewed just a little bit, like the supposed time that the mother calls in, the day they say they found the rab, because in the paperwork there's a thing where they found it on the 3rd. The missing poster is dated from the 2nd.
Yes.
It's everything is just, the time is tweaked a little bit one way or the other on almost everything in this case. Over and over again, we see this.
To me, Bibi, it smacks of a preemptive strike. Everyone was primed. Everyone was ready to come in. They just needed the right signal. And of course, that signal
it seemed like they missed their signals. They missed their timing marks. They jumped the gun. They got ahead of themselves. They reacted. They knew what their part was, and they did it before they got their signal that they were supposed to wait for. Is how it all feels. And
everything was orchestrated on the 3rd. That's when this all started.
I agree.
I believe it may have started before that.
It started when Andy Colburn found her car.
Yes, and read the plates. And of course,
that's when we first catch them. That's when we first catch them.
Yes,
I believe it started before that, but that's when we first catch them. Is when he thought he was being sneaky, calling the plates in with a cell phone on the Spanish line.
Correct.
Instead of on the radio to dispatch.
It's not a Spanish line. It was a non-emergency.
Okay. All right. Okay. Non-emergency, whatever. But I don't think he thought he was going to be recorded on his cell phone calling that line.
No. And when he was interrogated, he actually blamed the dispatcher for making the comment about the 99 Toyota.
Why is he calling in to find out if a car in boot wall? What? Why does he never call in Steven Avery's name, but he runs the zippers?
Yes. Yep. That's a very, very good point. And again, in our podcast, we'll cover all those points. But guys, let's move on because I'm conscious of the time. Zoe, how are we doing time-wise?
We are at 1 hour and 28 seconds.
Okay, guys, I reckon we're never going to finish the slides, but I reckon we do a few more slides and we'll call it quits. So are we happy about that?
Yes.
Yes, because I'm conscious of our listeners as well, and it's quite late for me as well. So, okay, we'll go into detail about the finding of the evidence, and we'll look at Pam of God, we'll look at her daughter, and we'll go all into that. But you can see with slide 76, we've got now. Who would like to comment on this? one DA handing over the baton to another DA, and we've got a smiling Ken Kratz. Who would like to comment on that? Christy, would you like to comment? You've got his book now. Don't be shy. You've got his book.
Okay, in hindsight now that I know who he is, now that I know what he is, now that I've read his book, now that I feel like I've been inside his head a little bit.
Yes.
The picture on the right makes me want to take a shower.
Yeah, and this happens throughout the trial. I've got to do a compilation of all his body language because it is very, very telling. In a lot of cases, he acted like a little kid, and in other cases, he acted as though he was about to throw all the toys out of the cot and have a hissy fit. And it's remarkable his behavior on the way he behaved in court. It was remarkable. Bibi, do you have a comment?
In this picture, he's grinning like a possum eating crap.
Yes, he is. And when one thinks about it, now that we know his narcissistic personality and other elements of his behavior and personality, I'm now no longer surprised that he's smiling like a Cheshire cat. I mean, this, when we think about it, is a missing woman, right? And it happens to involve the Steven Avery salvage yard. And look at the smile on his face. He loves the attention. He loves the focus. Big Jeff, you have a comment?
Just the quick comment is the reason why he was assigned in the first place was because they felt it was a conflict of interest for it to be handled in Manitowoc.
Yes. Thank you, Big Jeff. Correct. Correct.
Well, what the heck, they kind of stopped there.
Yes, correct. And it's sort of like one DA stepped out and the other DA stepped in, and he became the prosecutor for the case, the number one man looking after everything. Christy, do you have a comment?
He talks about this in his book, and he talks about how high this trial in this case made him feel, and he blames this trial in this case for his sex addiction and drug addiction that happens later. But when you mention his behavior, his behavior throughout this trial makes me seriously question when the sex addiction and the drug addiction started.
I would say it was before.
I would say it was as well.
Yes. Yeah. And if I could just comment, Bibi, before you step in, he did an interview with Buting on Dr. Phil, and boy, was that hostile as ever. And Buting actually blurted out that Ken had all these allegations and issues before the trial. And Ken just stood there smiling, but they were just unproven allegations, as though he just brushed them aside. You don't suddenly become a narcissist. It's part of your personality. It's quite clear that he had issues before the case. But you're right. This pumped him up as a media superstar, and it explains his behavior. Guys, would you agree with that?
You mean it pumped him up to the point of being a prize?
You took the words right out of my mouth. We've seen his text messages. He apparently thinks he's a hot, older, married elected. He even has to mention that he's an elected DA. Dude, who wrote your Match.com profile? That's not a turn on.
Yeah, in actual fact, it was quite scary. That is for sure. Look, guys, I think we should finish on slide 77. In actual fact, it's a very good break point. And it goes to show the contrast. We have a DA, Ken Kratz, smiling like a Cheshire cat. Have a look at the face of Steven Avery. That, to me, represents he knew then and there he was toast. And it's interesting the comment that he said, where he states, all I can think is they're trying to railroad me again. I mean, how devastating would that be? He knew what was coming. His family knew what was coming. He couldn't stop the freight train. The brakes were off. They were targeting him. Guys, let's have a final comment. Bibi, what do you think?
I think he clearly looks beaten and defeated. He's just he's bewildered. His look is bewildered.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Big Jeff.
Sadness and bewilderment.
Yes. Big Jeff, what do you think?
Well, there's an old expression that goes, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
And the necessity here was that Steven Avery's lawsuit couldn't continue.
Yeah.
And what they needed to prevent was a scenario that would put him away.
Correct.
It wasn't going to be an easy one. It needed to be elaborate because he was living. He wasn't the nicest person, but he was, pretty much keeping to himself. When you acknowledge to yourself how badly they needed to put him away, it's not surprising the length that they had to go to do it.
Yes. And we'll discuss all of that. Christy, what do you feel?
I don't have words to express what must have been going on for him at that moment. That had to be one of the worst feelings in the world. Having your freedom for just barely 2 years and knowing that they were going to do it to you again and that there was going to be nothing you could do. He says it. It took me 18 years and 6 weeks to prove I was innocent before.
Yes.
I'll do it again.
Yep. Billy, what do you think?
Well, he said from day one that he's being framed.
Yep.
And it's the truth.
Yep. He knew what was coming. I mean, you think about this. He actually went with his whole family, bar one or two people. He went to Crivets. He basically left his property as it was, right? He had nothing to hide. He even said that he had nothing to hide, and he even went to Crivets, right? Obi-Wan, what are your thoughts?
That is the look of an innocent man right there.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch base back on this previous photo or slide.
Of course. Of course.
At this time before Kratz was assigned to the case, he had already been present on the Avery salvage yard.
Yes. Yes, he was signed in on the 5th.
Yes, Griesbach was there before him. DA showed up, and then Kratz showed up.
Correct. Yep. Everyone, it was open slather. Everyone showed up. And remember, we're just talking at that stage as a missing person case. I reckon half of Manitowoc went down there. It was just phenomenal. A number plate, do you have any comments?
I think that Jeff actually hit the nail on the head, kind of down the same road I was going. This was a necessary evil for the county. In order for them to save the county, he had to go down. And that's something I know many of us do, but there's others that don't realize they did it to him once. They had to do it again.
Yes. Thank you very much, number plate. Millbilly, do you have a quick comment?
The first thing they planted was the car.
Correct. And we will definitely be discussing the RAV4. That's a vital piece of crime scene evidence. What is remarkable is I've had a few interactions with some guilters, and they can't fathom the fact that the MTSO had a prior history with Steven Avery and his family. There was all your motivation right there. Because if you remember, when we opened up the podcast, we looked at the chronology just before the sheriff and the DA were going to be deposed. Bang! Teresa Halbach goes missing. The timing is staggering because, as someone has already mentioned, that had a drastic effect. It meant that the civil lawsuit stopped. It also meant that the sheriff and the DA didn't have to appear in front of an investigator and asking all the tricky and nasty questions. That all went away, and the MTSO had to act very, very quickly to get this done. So, guys, are there any additional comments before we finish our podcast? New Billy.
It's just shocking that they did this again.
Again, yeah, no question. It is phenomenal, and it is shocking. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to thank again our special guest, especially Christy Lynn, and offer her
absolutely
opportunity to say anything about her extracurricular activities outside of our interaction with this group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
I really enjoyed being here. It's
thank
been
you
fun.
very much, Christy.
And Christy Lynn, you're normally found over at Facebook's Ma'am Gossip and Facebook's Steve Avery Project, because you're an
correct.
There.
I'm a moderator for the Steven Avery Project, and I basically spend more of my time in MAM Gossip. It's where you can talk about anything, any theory, any family member. Certain groups don't let you talk about certain theories or certain people being guilty. We don't care. You're just not allowed to talk about Steven being guilty.
It's also one of the few Facebook groups, because I'm in like a bunch of them, and it's one of the few that has any activity on a regular basis going on, where people are actually digging into stuff, doing their research, reading the documents, sharing the information.
Wow.
It's one of the few that's still active and has always been active.
I think we're fun. I think we're fun, and I think our members know how to be grown-ups for the most part. And I'm very quick to throw the ones out that aren't acting like grown-ups.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
it is a nice place. Yes.
Yeah, as you can see from our podcast. No, thank you, Christy. You can see from our podcast, we keep it casual, but clearly a lot of you guys have worked very, very hard over a long period of time. And look, we can't ignore what's happening out there on the internet. We're at a big, big crossroad, and doing the podcasts and actually going back, I have personally learned a lot. And guys, I think what we'll do is we'll come to a conclusion. And I'd like to thank all the panel members for their excellent comments. And what we'll do, we'll have a look at questions that have been left on the live chat, and we'll try and answer them as much as possible. But guys, I'd like to thank all of you for subscribing and for contributing and for your comments. Please check out the excellent work done by Millbilly on his YouTube channel, and also Big Jeff for his presentation. And of course, we have quite a few videos that Foul Play has done, covering many aspects of the case. My main specialty is the forensic DNA evidence. And if you have any questions on DNA or the forensic evidence, please do not hesitate to ask. Again, guys, thank you so much for your time, energy, and effort. Thank you, and we'll catch you all next week. Thank you.
Yep. Enjoy your Sunday.
Later.
Bye-bye.